Go.
Hello everybody, it is Root Beer. We are at BCS Anaheim and I have just scrubbed out. So Atlas just did his deck profile for his V Premium Great Nature, so I'm going to be doing my deck profile for Standard. I chose to play Haseritt because I did not feel like winning today. So we're going to get the no-brainer cards out of the way. First we have the Ride Line. I'm going with the pure Haseritt Ride Line right now. I think other people have tried other things. I think it might have been Willista because it gets you Soul, or the Kyrie Ride Line because it gets you some cards back and you can like call something, bounce it back to hand, and then once you get to grade 3 it doesn't matter. But I stuck with Haseritt because I liked what it was doing early game. So the grade 1, when it's ridden upon by the grade 2, lets you give something 2,000 power. You can call something from your hand, gets 2,000 power, and the effect that like at the end of the battle it attacks a Vanguard, it goes to the bottom of your deck and you draw a card. Grade 2 lets you just Soul Blast 1, draw a card. And then the grade 3 Haseritt has the same effect as the grade 1, where you can give something 2,000 and put the bottom of the deck draw, but you can choose up to 5. And if you choose 3 or more, she gets 10,000. So I liked what Haseritt was doing. Like, I was thinking about what was going to be in the meta, and it was like Flagberg, which can remove a bunch of cards, Gravidia, which removes a bunch of cards. Mahar has some retire, but not a lot. And those are like the 3 big decks that I was thinking of. Oh yeah, Eva has her like bind. So since so much of the meta has like really easy removal, I figure a deck that doesn't leave a whole lot on the board was a good call. Although, thinking about it, it does leave behind some grade 1s because they only return to deck when they attack, so your boosters still stick around, which can be a problem. But as far as our other no-brainer cards, 4 PGs. So I have 1 Sanctitude, 3 regular PGs, that's pretty standard. Grade 4 decks are still around, so Sanctitude is nice, and honestly Sanctitude would probably be good anyway, just because it bypasses guard restricts.
Is it 3 different PGs?
Yes, it's 3 different PGs. Of course I have 3 different PGs. Okay. I'm also going to have like a shit zillion different triggers.
Oh god, alright.
So yeah, triggers. Heals, obviously. I'm running 1 each of the effect heals. I figure like, of the decks I'm worried about, Gravidia gains an extra crit on one of her rear guards. Prison can get extra crit on Pure Light. And Bavsagar gets an extra crit. Youthberg gets an extra crit sometimes. And then for decks that attack multiple times, you have Mahar, you have... oh yeah, Eva also gets another crit. And then for decks that attack again, Flagberg, which is a big deck I was worried about. Like Bruce does it, Mahar does it. So I figured having like 2 of these around would be helpful, although it ended up not really coming up very much because I didn't match against any of those decks. And then 2 regular heals. And as you can see, this means I have 4 different heals. Hey, these 2 are justified.
Okay, whatever, but still.
Alright, next. Running 4 draws. I'm considering swapping them out for fronts because the deck is lacking in a bit of power, I found, especially early on. And then the extra shield value comes up. But I was going for draws just for like extra hand power. The deck already draws a decent amount, but you don't really like plus because you're cycling your cards. So that was my logic for the draw triggers, though. After, you do have some ways to kind of cheese out the Haseritt effect or get extra draws, so I'm thinking of maybe like swapping these out for fronts and trying that out. We'll see. And then OT, it's the over trigger. Of course you're playing it. Please ban. And then 7 crits. And I have multiple different crits here.
Oh, I see 2 of the same crit. He messed up, people.
I mean, I have 4 of the same crit if I actually had 4 of the soul crits. Alright. That's it for our, oh yeah, and no-brainer cards. Persona Rides. That's it for our no-brainer cards. Next, we have 2 copies of this card, so it's a 12k grade 3 that at the end of the battle when it boosts, you can put it into your soul, give something 5,000 power. I am going to be running Viewika in this build. I'll just put them out now. So, because of that, and because of some other things in the deck, I felt like I needed more soul charging, which is why I played 2 copies of this. It came up once, and I misplayed it, so couldn't actually get the soul charge, and it lost me the game.
Buddy, that's awful.
Yeah. So, we also have 4 Viewicas. She is a 13k booster all the time, basically, because she gets 5k when your opponent's grade 3 and you call something to the same column, and then because of Haseritt's ability, you're always returning cards to your deck and calling new things in her column. So, basically a permanent 13k boost. 4 copies of this card, what's her name anyways? Any Color Bubble Shaylin. So, her effect is at the end of the bout, or she gains 5,000 if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Haseritt in its name, and then at the end of that battle, you can Soul Blast 1, choose a back row center rear guard, move it to an open rear guard circle. So this is what gives you your 4th attack in Haseritt currently. So between this and Viewika and one of the grade 2s we'll get to next, I ended up needing a lot of soul, which is why I ran this, and it only came up once and I fucked it up. And then we have 3 copies of Munch Munch Lunch Catalina. I hate this.
This is the worst name in the universe.
So, her effect is when something goes to the bottom of the deck, it gets 5,000 power. It's a 6k grade 1. So Haseritt's whole thing is having units with less than standard power, and then she gives them 2,000 power to bring them back up. So I liked this card in testing because I found, especially on your Persona Ride turns, what happened is you have your front 2 circles that go to your bottom of the deck. You have Shaylin, which can put Catalina to the front row, and then combined with your Persona Ride, this hits 28k on its own. So, I use this a lot. This came up in every game, and I really like this card, actually.
Oh, that's good.
Alright, for grade 2s, had 2 copies of Melty. When I was testing the deck, I felt like Melty was a little bit unnecessary. You don't counterblast too much, so you can spare the counterblast for it. The problem is, like, as the game drags on, you're constantly putting normal units to the bottom of the deck, so blind drawing usually just ends up putting triggers into your hand, and then she doesn't gain any power on her own, so you can't really make a lot of offensive pressure. Plus, we're gonna have another grade 2 that also, like, searches cards and doesn't gain any power, so this is Adorable Shooter Clanfelli. I hate names. So, her effect is that I can put a grade 2 or less card in my soul, search my top 7 cards for either a grade 3 with 12,000 or less power, a grade 2 with 9,000 or less, or a grade 1 with 7,000 or less. So basically, searching for things with less than standard power. And there really is no easy way for them to write that, huh?
No, there's not.
Yeah. So, you can search your deck for something with less than standard power, or search top 7, and then if you don't call anything off of the effect, you just draw a card. So, always a free cycle in your hand, and then because our deck is very soul hungry, it also gets a card into your soul. Very important card. I found myself preferring it over Melty early game because Melty does not synergize well with the Haseritt ride line because they call in the ride phase, and she only works in the main phase, so I cut her. And then finally, we have my 1 frame rare copy of this card. 4 copies of her. This is Shape of Cat's Crater Sofia. So she has 2 effects. One is once per turn, when something is returned to the bottom of the deck, you can Soul Blast 1, and she gets 10,000 power. And then the other effect is on hit, you can put her to the bottom of the deck for cost, and then draw a card, countercharge 1. So, because of the way Haseritt is worded, you don't actually have to put things to the bottom of the deck as a cost. You just draw a card and put it to the bottom of the deck, all part of the effect, which means resolving Sofia does not interfere with Haseritt, you still just get a free draw. So if this does manage to hit, you get to just draw 2, and that's a plus for the deck.
Hi, this is Editing Rootbeer. This is definitely not the 4th time I'm recording this because I couldn't get my OBS settings right. Anyways, at the end of the original video, I went on a bit of a salty rant where I was like, you know, I lost all these games and I felt like they were out of my control, and I cut that out just because it was both a little bit unpleasant to listen to, but more importantly, in hindsight, I think one of the games I was mad at, I just misplayed, so... my ultimate conclusion is still the same, though, regarding the actual deck. I think I felt Haseritt was positioned well against the current meta because a lot of the decks had a bunch of removal, so I was like, okay, I can play some cards early, get some draws. I can kind of cheat the draw effect with Viewika so that I'm not losing cards going to the bottom of my deck. And I'm disappointed that I couldn't represent the deck better. In the future, I think I'm going to switch over to like the Astasis ride line just because I think it gets me the same kind of early pressure and card advantage, except now I don't have to think as much about what I discard for my ride line. So yeah, we'll see how that works out. Thanks for watching everybody. Bye-bye.